Boat. Yes, boat. A boat is a small vessel propelled on water by oars, sails, or an engine. But boats are more than just wooden vessels floating on water. They were the lifeline of early modern Japan. Designed to travel rivers, seas, and coastlines, Japanese boats came in many sizes, carrying warriors, traders, and ideas across the islands. And today we're sailing into the history of early modern Japan through an explanation of every boat that connected islands, fueled wars, and shaped the nation. By the Sengoku period, Japan was running a maritime free-for-all, with every major warlord having some kind of fleet. But there wasn't really an official navy yet. And rightfully so. They weren't sleek battleships, nor were they ocean-dominating machines. Instead, these boats were practical, and built to move people and goods from point A to point B. That design philosophy mattered because when Japan invaded Korea in 1592 during the Imjin War, it brought those exact same ships. No upgrades, no patch notes. These ships were basically a bunch of large ferries. And honestly, they didn't hold up very well. So let's dive deep into what these ships were, how they were built, and why didn't some of them age well. In the Sengoku period, the seas were crowded with pirates, merchants, tax ships, and warlords, who all thought they deserved a toll. Shipbuilding reflects this chaos. Nothing is standardized and everything is local. And the goal is speed and flexibility, not elegance or weaponry. Most of the era's boats followed one of four designs. First was the Kobaya, the smallest warship there was. These things were small, light, shallow, and fast. With thin wooden hulls, powered by oars and sometimes a small sail, they were mostly used as scout vessels. They were honestly pretty similar to the US's Mark VI patrol boat. Japanese commanders often used them to watch over the enemy and provide minor annoyance. But their upside was that they were easy to mass produce quickly. Next was the Sekibune, the real backbone of Sengoku naval power. These were medium-sized ships with sturdy wooden hulls and strong internal framing. They also had wide decks designed to carry many people. This was because the wide deck would allow the samurai to board enemy vessels and attack them in a boarding party. But their main drawback was that they weren't designed to carry cannons or any type of long-range weapon. The ship wasn't the weapon, but the men on it were. Then there was the Atakebune, massive cruise ships with tall superstructures and multiple decks, sometimes even iron reinforcement on the sides. They were built for intimidation, not for speed. Heavy and slow, they acted mostly as flagships and functioned like floating castles. Their long-range weapons were limited and weren't nearly as well equipped as those in capital ships from other countries. But here's the part that everybody forgets when talking about ships from this era. The majority of Japanese ships weren't warships at all. They were commercial transport vessels called Higaki Kaizen. They were broad, boxy ships built to carry rice, timber, and other cargo, and designed for stability and volume, not for speed or combat. They were like the 16th century's cargo trucks, ugly, slow, and essential. When Toyotomi Hideyoshi decided to invade Korea, Japan suddenly needed to move tens of thousands of troops across open water and keep them fed. Instead of building new ships, they drafted the ships they already had and sent them to war. Sekibune became escorts and boarding parties, while the slower Atakebune just kinda awkwardly sat there for most of the naval battles. But the thing is, these ships were built for dominance in coastal waters and narrow seas, not sustaining fire and chasing after enemies. However, the merchant ships had it the worst. Packed to the absolute limit with soldiers, food, horses, weapons, and supplies, they made up most of Japan's fleet. These ships were not built for war. They were lightly protected and predictable. Japan brought a massive logistic convoy into a hostile environment without proper naval supremacy, And history has shown us time and time again that unprotected supply of convoys are nothing more than easy targets drifting across the sea. Once the supply ships started sinking, everything fell apart. Japan's armies in Korea starved because resupply boats never showed up. Japanese boats were brilliant for what they were designed to do: coastal warfare. But when the context changed, these ships didn't hold up. They were optimized for the wrong situation. These ships quickly lost their purpose. The Kobaya, Sekibune, and Atakebune weren't modernized or upgraded. They were simply just phased out. With no large-scale naval warfare to fight and strict controls placed on shipbuilding and overseas travel, most military vessels were dismantled, repurposed as transport craft, or literally left to rot along the coast. Merchant ships like the Higaki Kaizen survived longer, but even they were redesigned to regulate trade rather than war. Japan no longer needed floating castles or boarding ships. They needed stability. These vessels weren't retired because they had failed. They were decommissioned because the world for which they were built no longer existed. They died along with the Sengoku period. The Sengoku boats gave rise to the Bazaizen, large cargo-carrying vessels known for their oval hulls and large single sail. They were highly efficient for domestic trade during the Edo period. The Yakata Bune, luxurious roofed dining cruises for the rich and nobles, were also an offshoot of the Sengoku boats. But just like how the Sengoku boats were no match for the Korean Navy, these boats were nothing compared to Commodore Perry's black ships. The history of early modern Japanese boats continues to repeat itself. If you like this video and want to help keep this channel Sekibune afloat, make sure to drop a like and subscribe and turn on notifications to stay on board. Drop a comment for what you want to see next, and I'll see you on our next voyage.